Things just took a major turn for the New York Jets as after re-signing Allen Lazard on a restructured contract, multiple members of the New York Jets brass have spoken out and revealed their feelings on Allen Lazard and some shocking plans that have been detailed for Lazard and how a new Jets wide receiver does play a huge role into all of this. And we're going to break it all down. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jets Digest. It's Chris here, and we're going to jump right into things as always. And guys, if you're part of that 72% that's not subscribed to Jets Digest, make sure to subscribe. It really helps the channel out a ton. We're on that grind right now. Matt's on a bit of a vacation, but he'll be back soon. And I know it'll annoy him that I said that, but let's jump into the video. We do have a lot to discuss. The Jets, well, Darren Mougey went out and did an excellent job restructuring Allen Lazard's contract, and that's a huge help to this team. I mean, Lazard was on way too big of a deal for the little production that he was giving to the Jets, and now on a restructured deal, he does become a free agent next season, and it felt like he is 100% certain to be playing for the Jets this upcoming season. But now there have been some rumors that maybe, just maybe, that is not entirely accurate, as Rich Cimini mentioned that Lazard's revised contract makes him tradable after June 1st. But why would the Jets do that? Right now, he's their second best wide receiver. Maybe things change with the draft, but for now, they need him. And Aaron Glenn said, listen, anytime you have a player of that magnitude, he's a really good blocker. I coached against him a number of times when he was in Green Bay, so I know what he brings to the table. So the thing is, what we're seeing is Jets head coach Aaron Glenn giving Allen Lazard his props, but at the same time, he is mentioning specifically that Lazard's a good blocker. We know the Jets are going to have a run-heavy offense this season with their three-headed monster at running back between Breece Hall, Isaiah Davis, Braylon Allen, also having Justin Fields there, and Tanner Engstrand wanting to pound the rock a lot. We know this is going to be a run-heavy offense, and Allen Lazard, a very good blocking wide receiver, is going to play a big part in the Jets running the ball. So it's a scheme fit. It is a good scheme fit. However, the Jets have made a few moves throughout free agency that makes you think, well, they do have blocking wide receivers already. They certainly do. Specifically this fella right here, Josh Reynolds, who absolutely is a good blocker as well and plays fairly similarly to Allen Lazard, which makes things very, very interesting to see where the New York Jets are standing right now, because now they have two of these guys, and maybe it's just, hey, we're going to have a block-heavy offense when we're running the ball. We're going to block for our runners. We're going to run the ball a ton, so we want a bunch of good blocking wide receivers. Perfectly normal, perfectly understandable, but also at the same time, does that mean Allen Lazard is long for the New York Jets? I mean, we all know that Lazard was allowed to seek a trade, and he tried to, but nothing really came from it, and it feels like it wasn't going to come to fruition because no team wanted Lazard's salary. But now his contract is a lot different, and after June 1st, Lazard can get traded off of the New York Jets, making for a very interesting summer upcoming where we could see Allen Lazard get moved soon before the training camp begins, making things very, very interesting as well. Now, on top of that, the Jet press mentioned that while many have been quick to assume Lazard's new contract locks in his spot for the upcoming season, that might not be the case. The deal offers Lazard some security, but it also gives the Jets plenty of flexibility moving forwards. Lazard's future in New York remains uncertain, and his revised contract suggests the Jets are keeping their options open. There's a chance the Jets move him before the start of the 2025 season, so multiple outlets reporting that Lazard could very well get moved, and well, right now, as Cimini said, he is their second best wide receiver, but that could change for the NFL draft. I mean, Lazard last season had 37 receptions for 530 yards, 14.3 yards per reception. That is with 6 touchdowns. So a solid season from Allen Lazard, not worth the $11 million that he was getting, but still a solid season, can still be an impressive piece for this team, especially in regards to blocking. On top of that, though, the Jets brought in Josh Reynolds, who's also a good blocking receiver, and look, he had 13 receptions last year for 194 yards, 15 yards per reception with 1 touchdown. Now, Reynolds definitely didn't get a ton of burn last season. Spent time, sort of split, was on the Broncos for a bit, then also played a game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But his best days came from the Detroit Lions, where he's now back under that coaching staff to a degree. So there is an expectation that he'll be able to jump back up and be a valuable piece for this team. Right now, he's slotted at the wide receiver 3 spot. But there's also Tyler Johnson, who the Jets signed in a sneaky move, where he had 26 receptions last year for 291 yards, 11 yards per reception, and 1 touchdown. He did win a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he is a guy who certainly has a winning pedigree and is a young guy who the Jets believe in. Like most of their moves, Reynolds being the one move that wasn't a direct young guy signing. So They have a veteran. They also have another veteran in Allen Lazard, but Reynolds and Lazard are very similar players, which makes you think maybe the Jets do want to trade Allen Lazard. Maybe that is the plan all along, and that's what they've been trying to do, or that's what they're going to try to do in this restructured deal. The Jet Press mentioned that Lazard's new contract not only creates significant cap savings for the Jets, but it also makes his salary much easier to move, positioning him as a realistic trade chip as we approach the 2025 draft. The Jets likely wouldn't receive much in return for Lazard, perhaps a conditional late day 3 pick at best. The limited market could ultimately lead to the team keeping him on the roster, at least for the time being, given that he could be traded near the trade deadline halfway through the season. If the Jets are losing games, they'd want to get some sort of value from a guy who did get some wide receiver 2 numbers. Now, the Jet Press also mentioned that signing Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson to join a wide receiver room featuring Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley, and Xavier Gibson, the team also is heavily rumored to address the position group, the wide receiver group, in this year's draft. Despite having obvious flaws, Lazard is still a quality depth receiver who is suddenly on a very reasonable contract. Still, the new Jets regime might not seem as a fit for the current roster. The restructure also gives them the flexibility to explore a trade if they want to, so now trades are a lot easier because they don't have to hook Lazard on, or they don't have to hook teams on that Lazard contract. They now just have to hook them on Allen Lazard and for the Jets to get some sort of draft compensation back in return, which does make things very interesting when you consider all the circumstances, because most likely a team at some point would be willing to take a chance if they need a wide receiver. What team comes to mind? The Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, as of right now, where things stand, if Aaron Rodgers still plays in the NFL next year, it's going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to announce that he's going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers if he does decide to play in the NFL. That's up in the air. Aaron Rodgers seemingly doesn't know or hasn't decided or has decided and doesn't feel like telling anyone. We all know Aaron Rodgers marches to the beat of his own drum. So whatever he does, he'll do it on his terms just because that's how Aaron Rodgers works. And, well, Lazard is the last member of the Allen Lazard. Allen Lazard is the last member of the Aaron Rodgers era still here on the offensive side. I don't really count Garrett Wilson as part of that. I don't think many Jets fans do. He was here before Rodgers, and it was known he'd be here after Rodgers, so here he is still. So the last guy from the Rodgers era is Allen Lazard. Obviously, the sequel was not as good as the original, and, well, with Rodgers gone, with Devontae Adams on the Rams, things are very interesting, and Allen Lazard right now is the final piece, but he could get moved. Maybe the Jets want a fully clean house from that era and don't want to have any of that reminiscence still with the team, or remnants still with their team, trying to rebuild the culture and change things, a culture that Allen Lazard certainly would be helpful to have around for, don't get me wrong, but also he was part of that old Jets team and given a bunch of players were as well, but we know Lazard signed with the Jets because it was part of a move to get Aaron Rodgers in the first place, so maybe the Jets do decide that they want to change their culture, and moving on Lazard might be part of that, and he might be collateral damage from that, so that could be a real situation here. Also, if the Jets feel like drafting someone instead of having Lazard, that also would make sense for them. But with Lazard on this cheap contract, I don't see them being in a rush to do anything. They did save a ton of money in this, and also they still could trade him, but it's not going to be till June 1st that they could trade him. So it's not going to be instant, but we could very likely see Allen Lazard still get traded, which is pretty surprising after that contract restructure. But hey, that's the way the Jets are moving right now. And honestly, if they could get something decent, if they could get like a 6th round pick for him, I'd do it, if I'm being real. I don't think Allen Lazard's the difference maker between the Jets making the playoffs next year and not making the playoffs. You might as well move on from Lazard and bring in literally any free agent wide receiver as well as a draft piece and try to give Malachi Corley some burn, because the Jets likely aren't going to make the playoffs anyway, so you might as well build on these young guys, see what works, see what doesn't, and go from there. But what do you guys think? Should the Jets move on from Allen Lazard anyway, try to get a late first round pick, this isn't the NBA, a late day 3 draft pick from a different team? Let me know in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Have a great day, and go Jets.